the increasing sharpness out when you combine them. So the second valve is tuned in just intonation terms to 17 to 16. What that means, if you imagine the tuba stretched out and you divide that stretched out length into 16 equal parts, it means that this valve is adding 1/16 of that length, which means you have it in length terms a relationship of 16 with no valve depressed and 17 with the second valve depressed. So you get the pitch relationships at 17 to 16, which is actually how this tuba is tuned. It's how all brass instruments are, the standard tuning of brass instruments. In tempered terms, that's 105 cents. So it's 5 cents larger than a tempered semitone. It's still within lipping distance. Lipping distance simply means you can adjust with the lips, so it's not so far out that you can't correct it with the lips. So you have a workable solution for the semitone. Now the whole tone valve is then so tuned that it adds another 16. So this has 1/16 of the length. The whole tone valve adds 2/16 of the length, which is an eighth of the length. So you get the relationship 8 to 9 in length relationships, or in frequency relationships 9 to 8. So you have 16, 17, 18. Because add 2/16, so 16, 17, 18. Or if you just look at the first valve in isolation, it will be adding 1/8 the tuning. You have the relationship 9 to 8. Again, if you look at that in tempered terms, it's 104 cents. It's 4 cents bigger than a tempered whole tone. So again, it's within shooting range. It's within lipping range of the interval that we're looking for.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Is it the case that in all brass instruments, regular tuning of the valves is the whole tone valve is 9/8 and the regular tuning of the?
For standard brass instruments, yes.
Yeah, it is.
Although again, that's not something you were taught. I think
Right.
it should be taught. I don't know why it wasn't taught. It seems so fundamental. I don't see why it's not taught. But what you're taught, or at least what I was taught, and what everybody I speak to is taught, you're given a chromatic scale and you're told that this is the fingering, and that's what you learn, and you never think about it after that. You know,
Yes,
there are
but then
tuning problems with.
Yes, but then you're taught to compensate for the 4 cents and for the 5 cents in the.
No, you're not. You're taught. I mean, because there's such minimal deviations. At least I can only say what I was taught. I wasn't taught anything about the tuning of the valves. I was simply taught that as you go lower, the tuning, as you combine more valves, the tuning. You don't even think of it in those terms. You just know that
Right.
when the instrument goes low, it tends to get sharper.
But you do anyway when you can play with the piano.
Well, actually, the English tuba has a special. It's called a compensating system. It's a very clever system where it only has 4 valves, and the tubing of the fourth valve is fed back through the first 3 valves. So it's a bit like driving an automatic car. You don't really have to think about it because the instrument's in tune anyway. It compensates for these tuning, what has generally been seen as tuning deficiencies, which actually I don't think they should be seen as deficiencies. It's just what's inherent with the instrument. It's a deficiency if you're aiming for tempered intonation. So now each valve is adding a 16th. So this has 1/16, this has 2/16. When they're combined, you're adding 3/16. So you get in the interval 19 to 16. And that in tempered terms is 98 cents. So it's very, very close to a tempered interval. So this has been the way that valve brass instruments have been slightly adjusted to compensate for the increased sharpness when you combine valves. But if you look at what valves actually do, they create this undertone row, because if you think of this as being adding 16ths of the length, if you imagine this instrument I talked about at the beginning, which is 1 metre long, or however, it wouldn't exactly be 1 metre, but imagine an instrument that's much shorter, an instrument whose fundamental is a 16th of the open horn length. So that, in this case, would be 4 octaves above, because 2 to the power of 4 is 16, so it would be... That would be the fundamental of that instrument. And then you have the undertone row, of that instrument. So we're now adding, imagine these virtual valves which are adding exactly the same length. That's the first 8, now 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we have this implicit undertone row which starts in terms of the fundamentals on the 16th. And then the other valves continue that further down. 17, 18, 19. All clear? Yeah. At this time I still had the English 4-valve tuba. And I said before, this is the system, the Blakely compensating system, where the 4th valve is fed back through the first 3 valves. It's a bit like an automatic car, and it has the advantage you don't have to think too much when you're playing it. But it has the huge disadvantage for just intonation that the valves aren't independent from each other, because the 4th valve is fed back through the first 3 valves. So if you want to have this concept of the undertone tuning and the overtone tuning, the English tuba is completely useless, because only the first 3 valves are independently tuned to one another. And that's the reason why in 2004 I bought this tuba. And the reason I bought this was I had the idea, well, partly because of the compensating problem with the other instrument, but also because I had the idea of continuing with this binary system with Martin Forley, but going in the other direction. So with his tubas, there are only 4-valve tubas, they started with the semitone. If you were to then continue the logic of that system, it would go not in terms of bigger intervals, but in terms of smaller intervals. So if you were adding 16th, no longer think in terms of 16th, but think in terms of 30 seconds, so you'd be adding a quarter tone, then this is what this tuba actually is. This was the reason I got this tuba in 2004. This tuba, when I got it, looked just like the standard German tuba. It had the extra long valves here. Remember the C valves? Remember? Mm. Yeah. So this tuba is also tuned binary. As I just demonstrated, the first, I have the extra long lengths of tubing for the 3rd and 4th valve. So this is not standard. This is why I can play the undertone route just now. And then the logic is extended to these 2 valves. So you have, instead of just sticking with this valve, think of the open length of tubing now being divided into 30 seconds. This now adds 1 32nd. So you get the frequency relationship 33 to 32. You have the tuba divided into 32 parts. This adds 1 32nd, so you have 33 to 32 to a quarter tone. And then I can continue using these valves. What I have now is an undertone row, but from the 32nd now. So instead of starting from, I'm starting from the octave above that, which I can't play on this tuba. That was F5, I'm now starting from F6. And then this valve, I'm now thinking of the tuba divided into 64ths. So I'm taking it one step further. So this now adds a 64th of the length, which means when I depress this, I have the frequency relationship 65 to 64. So I have, in tempered terms, this would be an 8th. In tempered description, this would be an 8th tone. It's incredibly easy to play because of the logic. It's all I'm doing is repeating the same pattern all the time. It's basically bass 2. It's a bass 2 logic. It's not as easy as that. If I want to play 8th tone tempered scale, then it gets much more complicated. But if I stick to the undertone tuning, which is inherent within the tuba, this is a very easy to use intuitively.